Hello, everybody. Welcome. Welcome to Love Chat with the Love Twins. Let me get myself together here. Welcome to Love Chat with the Love Twins. We're actually having a great conversation today because we are continuing the conversation that we had yesterday, yesterday was about what to do when you feel like you're the one who's doing everything in the relationship and your partner isn't doing anything in the relationship. And so if you didn't catch that, make sure you if you're watching this on YouTube, that you look for that conversation. If you're here on Facebook, just look in the video archives, because that was a very, very important conversation. And as Michelle and I were giving tips on what to do if you're doing everything and your partner isn't doing it, or you feel that they're not doing anything, let me add Michelle, then we started going and how that looks and what you can do to create win-win conversations. So today we're going to talk about how to have win-win conversations. And so, hey, Michelle, welcome.
Hello.
Right, so I am looking for today. Yeah, I'm looking for today's thing. Okay, so yesterday we talked, I was telling them, they can always go on YouTube, check the videos there, or they can come here on the page and on the Facebook page and watch part one yesterday, which was all about what to do when you feel like you're doing everything and your partner isn't, and how that opened us up to start talking about how do you have win-win conversations, even if it's a tough, any kind of conversation. The intention should always be to create a win-win, meaning both of you and the conversation feeling like we're in this together. There's no losers, there's nobody that's suffering or sacrificing to the point that they don't get their needs met. So that's where I started with the introduction. So I know yesterday we started talking a little bit about rules of engagement, and I'm trying to think of what the other thing that we said, oh yeah, we need to bring that in too. But why don't we start with some of the ways to kind of lay the playing field before the conversation even begins.
Okay, so like we've talked about before, the very first thing is getting in the right mindset. And you're going to hear us say this over and over again, because the mindset that you're coming from is going to generate everything. Your intention comes from it, your words come from it, your beliefs come from it, everything. So ultimately, if all that comes from your mindset and your context, then so do the results that you produce. Mm-hmm. So Gladys made a good point in that if you are already coming from, there's something I have to defend, or there's someone I need to defend myself against, like my partner, because they're not for me, they don't appreciate me, and all those limiting beliefs that can really constrain the way that you feel in a relationship, but and what you experience, but also how you show up in the relationship. So one of the things I was having a conversation with the client we were talking about yesterday, I said, it's like having two kids. You're raising two kids, same house, same family, everything, and one of them is messy, and the other one, or one of them has their room messy all the time and the other one doesn't. Even when you're going to talk to them both about picking up their room, if you are relating to one like your need and the other one like you're messy, that's your mindset and your context, even though you're talking about the same behavior, your attitude, your energy, the words that you choose are going to be completely different. And so the first thing is getting in the right mindset. And Gladys did a great job of showing us the 4 steps of what she uses, and I've been using it. And I actually coached somebody yesterday who said, I saw it the other day, let me take it out, we're going to do this on the phone together. So getting in the right mindset, the right state of mind. And then the other thing you'll hear us talk a lot about is the intention. So what is your intention? Because if your intention in having this conversation of creating the rules of engagement, and we know that rules of engagement is what's used for war. We're not talking about war. We're using it in a different context. So if your intention is to be right, it's not going to work. So the intention of this type of conversation is to create partnership, to create open communication, to create agreements in the relationship, that once you do that, you don't have to have these types of conversations. Maybe you have them a couple times, but you both agree, if X happens, this is how we're going to deal with it. So mindset and context, and then intention, clear intention. So Gladys, did you want me to give an example of one of mine, and then you can give an example of
Yeah,
of
because
what's yours?
otherwise it's not tangible for people.
Okay. So here's one that has existed since day one of Arnie and Michelle back in 2000 and something, becoming boyfriend and girlfriend in a committed relationship. Was Arnie and I have an agreement that we do not curse at one another and we do not yell at one another. So that's an agreement. So no matter how much we disagree with what the other one's saying or what the other one may have done, no matter how upset we may feel, we don't get to come out and yell at each other or curse at one another. And we have honored that agreement. The cursing one for sure. The yelling one, we've broken a couple of times, and I'll tell you later on what happens if you break one. But I could count probably on one hand how many times in 13 years together we've yelled at one another. So by having that agreement, the intention is that we're respectful towards one another. So what comes out of that is that I don't have to worry about being yelled at, and neither does he. So no matter what we are going to talk about, there's so much peace of mind and there's so much gratitude on my end. I can speak openly that that's not something I have to worry about, because in my previous marriage and in previous relationships, that was not the case. Mm. I grew up in a house where people yelled. I used to yell. The people I was in a relationship with yelled. My kids yelled. Everybody was yelling. And it's not something that I was committed to experiencing in this relationship, and neither was Arnie. So that's one of mine. What about you, Gladys?
Well, one of them, for sure, we because we're raising little ones. Now we have, that we do not have arguments in front of the kids. Now, our kids know that things are not perfect. We do not want to give the illusion about that, but we don't. Here's a better way to put it. We don't contradict each other in front of the kids. So that's a big. And this is important whether you have kids or not. So don't tune out if you don't have kids, because, and this is also, it's coming to me like downloads. It's also, even if you're co-parenting with somebody who is not your romantic partner. One of the things that kids need more than anything else, they'll tell you differently, but that they do need more than anything else, is a feeling of safety and structure. So when children see their parents arguing, any child gets scared, and most of them think that they have to fix it or they have to do something to make it better. But the contradicting each other in front of the children makes them feel uncertain and unsure. It also puts them in a position where choosing one parent would be going against the other. And so when we're talking about rules of engagement and war, and stuff like that, like having to pick sides is not something a child should have to do. Now, there are times when somebody's got a point of view that's different than the other. Something may go completely against your values. So the agreement can be, we'll talk about it later. And if we have to tell the kids we can't make a decision right now, I know I just said that, but I did not, and we've had to say it to our kids. I did not talk about this with your father beforehand, and so although I just said yeah, excuse me, I just said yes, we're gonna have to wait till Dad and I have a conversation about this. And what that does, they might be disappointed, and maybe I said yes, and it might change to no, but they're not seeing their parents pushing or pulling against each other or making the other one wrong. So I think that's very, very important. But even before we had children, we had that agreement of, it's not about contradicting. If you've heard me speak about Rick and I really truly believe that God could not have created another human being on this planet that is more opposite to me. We are perfect pieces of a puzzle because we are the complete opposite shape of each other. And we don't always agree. We don't have the same opinions. And just like normal human beings, he wants me to agree with him and I want him to agree with me. But that can't be, when Michelle was talking about context and intention, it can't be the premise for having a conversation. Sometimes we actually do, I know it sounds like a cliche, agree to disagree. We're just going to have a disagreement. But when it comes to the kids, I think it's really important to have that, it's not a fake united front. It's just like, wait, we have an agreement and I didn't follow the agreement. And so I do have to have a conversation with your dad about it. And like I said, I think that this is important whether you're still in a romantic relationship with the other partner, because not every how do I say this? Not every separation is amicable, and it's just such a difficult place to put the child. It's unnecessary. We're the grown-ups, and we're the ones who are supposed to be setting the example for the kids. So
Yeah. And I would add this, even so, let's say you don't have children, or even if you do have children, even when you're in front of other people, you don't want to get into those types of disagreements and contradictions with each other in front of other people.
mm-hmm.
So, you know, that you can actually practice that as well. I was having a conversation with another client today about this exact topic, about why we give ourselves permission with our partners to just go off and be however we want to be in some relationships, but we wouldn't do that with other people. So what this does, what the rules of engagement does, is it really creates a foundation of respect and partnership that works. It really works. So like I said, Gladys doesn't have to worry about being contradicted in front of her kids. Neither does Rick. Arnie and I don't have to worry about somebody yelling at us or cursing at either one of us. It creates a peace of mind. It creates safety. And all of us want to feel safe in the relationships we're in, and we want to be around the people that we're in relationship with. So those are two examples. You can create rules of engagements about, you know, how you're going to disagree. So in a disagreement, you could call a timeout. So that's another one of ours. You can call a timeout, and a timeout doesn't mean I'm walking away from you. You actually say, I need a timeout, or I need 5 minutes. I need some time. I promise I'm going to come back and revisit this. You could declare or set a time, 5 minutes, or let's talk about it after dinner or before we go to bed, if it's in the middle of the day. But you can call timeout. So what it does is it creates a structure. And it's not that, and Gladys and I have said this all the time, it's not that you create rules, because we're not about rules, but you create structures that actually work, because extraordinary relationships, and you've heard us say this before, don't just happen. They just don't poof, come out of the sky like they do in the Hallmark Channel. You actually create it every single day with your partner. So if you have been together for a long time and you don't have these types of agreements, it's never too late to implement them. The person that I was coaching today, she's been married for 15 years, and they just started talking about how they're going to start communicating, particularly when things get tense. In the moment that I start to feel tense, if I don't have a structure in place on how to de-escalate myself, and we don't have a structure in place on how to de-escalate the issue, the probability of that turning into a blowout is very high. So intention and mindset, mindset and context, intention, and then you've got to make sure that you both are going to be consistent and uphold that agreement. Because it won't work to say, okay, we're not going to yell at each other, and then yell at each other, and then apologize, and then the next time you're not disagreeing, you're yelling again and apologizing. What starts to happen is you start to lose faith in the agreements that you've made to one another. You start to doubt what you can believe that's coming out of your mouth and your partner's mouth. And then again, it just doesn't work. It doesn't work because the I'm sorry, after it's been said 3 times about the same thing, doesn't carry the weight it had when you apologize the first time. So you really commit to upholding that agreement, and you don't let yourself off the hook about it. There have been times where I have raised my voice, and Arnie has stopped me right in the middle of a sentence and said, okay, we have an agreement to not yell at one another. Now, I may not think that I'm yelling. The agreement is, I don't say, I'm not yelling. The agreement is immediately, this is part of our agreement, no yelling. And when the other person feels they're being yelled at, you stop. You apologize and you stop. You don't go into excuses, but you said, but I feel, but my hormones, that could be one of mine, but that's not what you do. Because the more consistent you are with it, the more powerful that agreement becomes. The less consistent you are with it, the less powerful it becomes. And just like with any habit that you're creating in your life, in order for it to become a habit, you've got to practice it over and over again consistently. So consistency in upholding the agreements would be the last piece of that.
Yeah, and I want to say something about the timeout, because the timeout is not shutting the other person off and saying, this conversation is over, flicking your hair and you know, and rushing out the door. There's none of that attitude. There's none of that disrespect. It's, I'm calling a timeout, and I will sometimes say I need a timeout because I don't want to say something that's disrespectful.
Absolutely.
And I say that for him, yes, but I'm saying it more for me, because many times when we're feeling, maybe I'm not feeling heard, or I'm thinking that what I want is not going to happen, you know, our brain clicks into survival defense mode, and I don't want to feel like I have to defend myself against my partner, but I also don't want to give him the experience that he has to defend himself against me. And so when I know that I'm getting to that place, and this is really about being mindful, knowing how to manage yourself and manage your emotions, like Michelle mentioned, the whole hormones thing. You know, when my clients tell me, well, I was PMSing, and I'm like, okay, so what structures are you going to create in your life? Because this is something that's going to happen every month for quite a few years, and it's not a letting you off the hook thing. Like, if you
Right, it's not a
you
free
tend
pass.
to get a certain and particular way, yeah, it's not, if you know that the tendency is to get more emotional, to maybe have outbursts, I mean, it's not imaginary, there's science behind it, then what are the things that you're going to do during that period of time that's going to help you to be able to be more mindful, more able to manage your emotions, and not lash out, and not give yourself a, like, taking yourself off the hook, or giving yourself, like Michelle said, a free pass for inappropriate behavior. Because this is a little ism that we share with our clients, is the moment that you say, well, I raised my voice because you fill in the blank, or the moment you say, well, you know, I had to, that word came out of my mouth because you, whatever the blank, it doesn't even matter what's after that. What you are saying, and I'm going to say this slowly, and I might say it twice. In that moment where you're saying, oh, there are instances in this relationship where we're allowed to disrespect each other. Right. If somebody does X, then the other person can disrespect. So if somebody gets you upset, then it's appropriate for them to become disrespectful because you've just done it. So if you try to excuse it, or you give a rationalization or a justification for disrespect, then you're actually granting permission and saying that this is something that's acceptable. Raising our voice, saying bad words, whatever it is, that the rule that was broken, and you're saying, oh, well, I only did it this time, because it really doesn't matter what comes after that. You've just said it's okay subconsciously, but now we're making it conscious, like you've actually said that. So that's something that I remember in my mind, because I'll be honest, I lived a life of always being on the alert, you know, always feeling like I had to defend and protect myself. So sometimes it is the first thing that kicks in. When I'm mindful, when I've done my self-care, when I'm, you know, in my power, I can have any. Yesterday I had a very difficult, not difficult, but it was a challenging moment in a conversation with a client, and I was peaceful. She was freaking out, and I was like, okay, well, we need to take some breaths together, because we can't have a conversation like this. Neither one of us can have a conversation like this. And then we did our breathing exercise, and the energy shifted automatically. But I did want to say that. I really wanted to say that, because that justifying, like you were saying, Michelle, after, you know, several times of repeating the same apology, it's not that you don't want to apologize, but you just have to also put yourself in the other person's shoes. How many times is it going to be, well, it was because of this, or it was because of that, you know? And it does, like Michelle said, it starts to lose the weight, and it also starts to, like, tarnish the rules of engagement, the agreements that we've made.
Absolutely. And that's when then people say, you know what, it doesn't work. It's not, this works. It's been working for 13 years for me. It's been working for 19 years for Gladys. It's been working for hundreds of clients that we've trained this technique to over the years. It works if you work it, just like everything. If you work it, and in the beginning it's going to feel awkward, and you may make mistakes, and it's not going to be perfect, and that's okay. It's not about perfection. It's about everyday progressing, getting better at it. And now it's like, it's to a point where I don't have to think about, am I supposed to yell my voice, raise my voice? Am I yelling? The minute I start to feel it coming on, I can ask for timeout. And the way my timeout sounds, just to your point, Gladys, is similar to what you said. I need a timeout so that I don't say something that I'm going to regret. I love you. I'm going to leave the room for a moment and I'll come back. If we're on the phone, I can't talk about this right now because I'm feeling very upset about it. So I don't want to say something I have to apologize for later, or I don't want to say anything that's disrespectful. So can we talk about it when you get home? And what that does is it interrupts the action, it interrupts it in the moment, and it also gives me time to think and process and get back in touch with what am I really committed to in my relationship, which is to have a loving, peaceful, powerful, amazing partnership with my husband. So that's the thing I can always ground myself in again when I want to be right and I want to be, holding on to my anger is what am I really committed to?
Yeah. I mean, and I know it sounds like, oh my God, how am I going to think of all these? This is why we don't believe in rules. Like, how am I going to remember all this? But you set them together, and we said this yesterday, and I wanted to just, because we're about to wrap up, creating these rules of engagement, these agreements, is not one person saying these are going to be the rules and the other person agreeing. That's not what we mean about rules of engagement and agreement. What we mean is, here are the things that I feel would work for me. In a conversation, I don't want there to be yelling. I don't want to be yelled at, and I don't want to be yelling. I don't want bad words. I don't want to contradict in front of the children or anybody else. And you say the things that are there for you, that are important for you. And then your partner also gets to express what your partner would like in a conversation, heated or otherwise. And then together you agree on the ones that you both agree on, that you both will commit to. And sometimes, it may be a new behavior for somebody else, and you are going to want to have, like we said, we don't want you to be apologizing all the time and not honoring, but you do need to grant grace. If you and your partner have been doing things for a certain time very differently, grant each other grace in learning something new, so that you don't do what Michelle said. Well, it didn't work, and that's it. We did it one time in 20 years, or or 10 months. It doesn't matter, and it didn't work. It's commitment. It's commitment to really having conversations that, like we said in the title of today's talk, are win-win. Both of you win, because both of you feel heard, both of you feel respected, both of you feel like you contributed to the conversation and that your contribution was received in the conversation. And this works for any kind of relationship, whether you talk, conversation, money, about the children, job decisions, even at work. Those of you who work in teams may want to start creating some rules of engagement if your meetings are not being productive, if they're not leading to solutions. And when Michelle was saying intention at the beginning, like, really set a powerful intention, because you can talk for half an hour, 3 hours, and have nothing come from that conversation. But if you're having a conversation for clarity, a conversation for forgiveness, a conversation for restoring, peace and love in your relationship, that's very different than just talking at each other for hours.
Right. Yeah. An example, I love what you said about work. An example that I used to use when I was leading a team was, you can come to my office not with a complaint. You can come with a complaint and 3 solutions. So 3 possible solutions. So you just don't get, we didn't get to just go into each other. And same thing with me, with my employees. What that did is it created an environment where people weren't just dumping emotionally problems. Because then you come, you complain, you leave the problem on my desk, and that now it's on the pile of the 30 other problems that I have to solve by the end of the day. So when you come to me with a problem and 3 possible solutions, one of them is probably not going to be the best solution, right? Because it's probably the 3rd one you fit in there just to get one in there. But the other 2 are things that we can talk about. And then it helps to get through the solution creation process faster. So whether you're talking to, and you can use this with your kids as well, create family rules of engagement.
show you. You come to my house. I don't know if you can read this. I know that it puts it backwards, but if you come to my house, you will find these all over
There
our
are three
house in different
solutions.
places. There are 3 solutions to every problem. 1, 2, 3. So if there is something that you need help with, or there's, oh, I thought I was putting it in the camera again, but it's because I'm seeing it on the computer. If you, it's same thing with I don't know. I don't allow I don't know in my house, because that means I don't care enough to know. I didn't care enough to look for a solution. But in saying there's 3 solutions to every problem, even in your family, with your children, it means that we are having a conversation toward solutions versus having a conversation for, explosion, or for, like Michelle said, for complaining. It's okay to voice the things that you are unhappy about, especially with your partner, with your kids, with your family, with your team. It's okay to voice the things that you're unhappy about, and then say, what is the intention of me saying this? Is it just to leave the complaint sitting there, or the unhappiness sitting there, or am I speaking with already an intention that we're going to create a cooperative solution, that together we're going to come to a solution? I think I just feel it's so important, because everything is not roses and unicorns and rainbows in relationships. There are times when we're hurt, unhappy, disappointed. Things didn't go the way we thought they were going to go. And even inside of disappointment or unhappiness, there can still be a respectful and loving way to express that. And that'll probably be for another day, where we can give you a ton of different ways to express what you are wanting to say in a way that doesn't diminish or disrespect the person who's on the receiving end of your words.
Yep. And I think that's a good point to finish with, because every relationship is going to have its moments of challenges, disappointments, heartache. Every relationship will. What distinguishes a healthy relationship from one that's not is the amount of time that happens, or the frequency with which that happens. So if you're in a healthy relationship, you're not dealing with sadness, disappointment, upset every day, every few days. You might experience it every once in a while. That's part of life. When you're in an unhealthy relationship, and where you need to start seeking out support for it, is if you find that you're arguing, disagreeing, feeling upset, disappointed, disenchanted in your relationship every day, every 2 days, every 4 days. That is a pattern, and it's a sign that something's going on with either the communication, the integrity, the agreements. Something is happening in the relationship, either with both people or one of the people in the relationship, that needs to be addressed.
Absolutely. So we saw a lot of people pop in here, and I forgot to say, ask your questions if there's something that you want to ask. So those of you who are on our email list, check your email tomorrow, because there's going to be something there for you regarding how you can get your questions answered on Love Chat with the Love Twins. And those of you who are not, want to head on over to Heart's Desire, intl.com. That's the Heart's Desire website, and you can go ahead, and there's an excerpt of our book 30 Days and 30 Ways to Fall in Love with You, that you get as a free gift when you give your email address, your name and email address, so that you can be part of the email list. And that way you have all the updates. We do blogs, articles, videos, events, live events, virtual events. That's the best way to stay connected, so that you always are updated. You're most updated with our work and what we're doing and what we're up to. But most importantly, we really do want your questions, because we want everything that we do, whether it's an email or a video or an event, for it to truly be addressing the questions, the fears, the situations that you have in your own love life or in your relationship, so that you can begin to create the life and the love that your heart desires. So look for your email, join our email list. I'll pop the URL in here in the comments, so it makes it easy for you. And we are the Love Twins. And until our hearts meet again,
always remember that you are loved. Goodbye for now. Bye.
All right, everyone.